Hello everyone, I am Dead Knight and this is In It to Win It. We are going through some of the more fun and popular decks for United and Stormwind based on the cards that I've been playing in Season 89. You've already seen the video for my Legend run and some of my picks for what I thought were the best, the worst, the most interesting cards in the set. And today we are going to go over Hunter. So Hunter is near and dear to me, and because I hit Legend so many times with Hunter in so many different seasons in Standard and Wild, and we got a lot of great support for some new cards in United and Stormwind. And so what I've done with it is I've just been dying to try Questline Hunter, and so I did, and I was pretty happy with the results. I don't think it's the best deck in the format right now, but it is a lot of fun to play, and it's definitely formidable, and you can really go far with this if you want to, and it's fun. So let's give it a shot. So firstly, let's talk about the stars of the deck from what's new. Obviously, the quest line is the centerpiece of this deck, defend the Dwarven district. So it's going to require you to play a total of 6 spells that are going to deal damage to something. Every time you play 2 of those spells, you get some sort of upgrade to your hero power. So the first time, your hero power can target minions. The second time, your hero power costs 0. And then the third time, you get Tavish that you can play. He's a 7/7 for 5 that will allow you to refresh your hero power every time you play a spell. So, obviously we're going back into machine gun mode here, just like old Raza the Chained Priest, where every time you play a spell, you get a free 2 damage anywhere you want. So what does that mean for your deck construction? It means obviously you're going to be running pretty much almost all spells with a couple of key exceptions. So let's look at those spells and mostly the new support. So you got an all-star card coming out with Aimed Shot. So this is 3 mana, deal 3 damage to any target, and then you get to do 2 extra damage with your next shot of your hero power. So if your hero power is free, then that's basically just 5 damage for 3 mana. Also, buffs your hero power until you use it. So if you don't use it right away, that's fine too. So you can pop this guy, save your hero power for a little bit, and it's just a really great all-around card. Really versatile, can do whatever you want with it. So these were the 2 cards that I showcased in my Hunter United and Stormwind card set, and they've proven to be just as exciting as I hoped they would be. So you're definitely going to run these, and then pretty much the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go down the line of Hunter and put just about every damage dealing spell in there. So what are the ones that are going to stand out? It's going to be Arcane Shot, which it's not very interesting, but 2 damage for 1 mana is going to help you feed that quest. You want cheap spells so that if you draw them after you complete the quest, then you can use them to refresh your hero power, and Arcane Shot really fits the bill. The next one you're going to choose is Wound Prey, which was a new one from Forge and the Barrens. Again, it's going to be damage for 1 mana, and it's also going to put a 1/1 rush on the board. So when you're playing a deck full of spells, it's not always easy to establish board presence, so even that 1/1 rush is still going to help. Next, you're going to be looking at Piercing Shot, which of course is a standout card from Forge and the Barrens, so you can really pile on damage while removing minions, feeding that hero power. So those are going to be your primary damage dealing spells. And I do want to take a moment to talk about what we are not playing in this deck. So for me, Bola Shot did not make the cut, and the reason for that is there's a lot of decks out right now that are not running minions or very few minions. So Questline Mage has very few minions. Questline Warlock and most of the Warlock's decks are really defensive. So they're playing big minions in the mid and late game, or they're playing lots of spells early game. So you can't use this to pop the quest because there aren't really any minions down. Or if you are popping the quest, you're only getting 1 minion out of the way for 2 mana. So it's really not working as well as I had hoped. The other one, which I really thought was going to be great and turned out to be kind of a dud, was Explosive Trap. I thought Explosive Trap was going to be like a signature spell in this deck. Get to play that early, kind of clear your opponent's board, 2 damage to everything. but it really isn't working out that way just because of the type of minions that people are running right now. So both those ended up getting cut for single target 1-mana spells. And now as far as some other support, part of the problem with this deck is that you can run out of cards really fast. So when you're playing, really cheap, expendable spells that on their own aren't that great, but synergize well with that quest line, you really need some support to generate resources. So option one is Kolkar Pack Runner. So this guy, this 2/3 for 2, he generates a 1/1 rush every time you play a spell. We've already experienced this guy for a few months. He's been awesome. He's helping you take control of the early game against fast decks, helping you just push out a lot of stats onto the board against slow decks. And since your whole deck is spells, this guy's even better now. So superstar in this deck right now. The next one is going to be, I went with it. I couldn't resist with Lock and Load. Changed now to be 1 mana. Every time you play a spell, it puts a hunter card in your hand. So, this isn't as amazing as you would think it'd be, because part of the problem with this is it gives you a lot of non-spells. So when you pull minions and you want to be playing spells, it's a little frustrating. But on the other hand, it does let you generate some threats out of nowhere that, if they're good cards, then you can really distract your opponent while still piling up spells for a huge machine gun turn later. So, the resource generation is still resource generation, and at 1 mana that synergizes well with what you're trying to do in this deck, really, you just can't resist. So there's a couple other ways you can do resource generation, and I chose not to go with them, but some of them are becoming popular. The first one is Voracious Reader. So 1/3 for 3, draw up to until you have 3 cards at the end of your turn. So this allows you kind of early to mid game to just empty your hand and draw 3 cards. It's almost for sure dead the turn you play it. So you're pretty much looking at 3 mana, draw up to 3. So it's a little slow. So I don't, it's not really doesn't really do it for me in this deck, because sometimes you get stuck with cards you can't play. Like if you have a piercing shot and then another expensive card, and you have this guy, you can't dump your hand. So it can get undervalued. So I personally don't like it, but some people do. The next thing you can run is minions that discover spells, and there are a bunch of them that are pretty good. So first off is the new entrapped sorceress. 3/4 for 3. If you have a quest line in play, you get to discover a spell. So really solid stats on this guy. Generating a spell. The spell is going to help you with your game plan. So a lot of people are running that. The other one is oldie but goldie Venomous Scorpid, the 1/3 poisonous, also discovers a spell. If I could only run one, I personally would run the Scorpid, because odds are you're not going to be really able to attack with this guy. You really want to fend off the board until you can get your machine gun going. So I like the Scorpid, but yeah, it's up to you. And then there's some untraditional choices like Pandaren Importer, which lets you discover a spell that didn't start in your deck for 2 mana. You're already running most of the spells that you want to be discovering, so I don't play this guy, but it's an option for a cheap discover. And then another card that I'm seeing a lot of people run, interestingly, is a Nobleman. So 2/3 for 3, copy a card that's in your hand. So typically the card that's in your hand is going to be, well, it's guaranteed to be playable, right? Because you played it in your deck. So guaranteed to draw you, get you a playable card is good. The fact that it's random, it's obviously it's already a good card because it's in your deck, but it's not always going to be the card you want. So and it's understated. So I'm not a huge fan. I'm not sold on it yet, but some people really like it. And then you have another choice too of whether you want to be pressuring early game with some cheap spells that don't deal damage, or whether you want to run some of these things. So your early game threats are Demon Companion, which is just a phenomenal card all around. One of the top performing cards of the last season and the last expansion, or well, what didn't come out in the last expansion, but in the year that it's been out, it's been performing extremely well. And then Adorable Infestation, same thing, top performing card. generating so much resources for 1 mana, putting just a lot of stats. You're putting 4 stats onto the board and getting a card in your hand for 1 mana. So when you look at it that way, it's really strong. So the reason why both these cards are good is because if you get them in the early game, you have fast pressure, you can stack up some early damage while getting board presence and allowing yourself to clear the way with spells later. If you get them late game, they're 1 mana spells that can refresh your hero power to deal extra damage. So anytime you draw these cards, they're going to be good. So that's why I'm running them instead of some of those spell discoverers. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is you want to, as fast as possible, complete the quest line without jeopardizing the board, and then just gun to the face. The more damage you can get to the face, the better, because you want to be able to use the minions that are being generated by the spells to help control the board. And then when you do get to machine gun time, you want to be able to close out the game the next turn with 3 spells or less, because otherwise the deck can be a little too slow because it has that resource generation problem. Other more consistent decks that can pump out more damage will overtake you. So you have to be able to outpace them. So you want to get as much damage to the face as possible with your spells, if you can, without losing the board. So it's pretty straightforward, but I gotta say it's a lot of fun. I'm not necessarily sold that this is better than Face Hunter, the deck that I hit Legend with a bunch of times, that had 4 of the best cards that were performing in the entire format. I don't know if this is better, but it's definitely fun. It's a really cool experience to have with Hunter. It's what you think of what a Hunter should be, constantly shooting. So, it's super duper fun to play, and that's really what this game is all about, is having fun. So I would give it a try. It's definitely has the potential to win. It's not very dynamic, so if something goes wrong with your game plan, you pretty much lose. But that said, have fun with it while you can. And I'll probably end up making a wild version of this if it works as well as I expect it will. So stay tuned for that. What do you think of Hunter? Are you sold on Machine Gun, or are you going back to Face? What are you doing with Hunter? Leave some respectful comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in next time.